this episode of the Jesus Agenda, we're going to discuss the weaponization of the Department of Justice, the death of evangelical leader Tony Campolo, and a company called Phone Corps, and our over-reliance on technology. My name is Chad Kyler. This is Stephen Mannion, and this is the Jesus Agenda, the show where politics, religion, and culture come face-to-face with Jesus and his agenda. So the DOJ, I think, is at the top of our list, maybe because we just saw nominees get switched out, right? Matt Gaetz withdrew, probably wasn't going to make it through the confirmation process anyway. And Pam Bondi is the new nominee. And I like Pam Bondi. She was the attorney general in Florida. She was also Trump's attorney in his first term for the impeachment. I generally like the things she has to say. But what we need and what we hope she'll do is go in and clean up the DOJ, because as we've seen for the last probably 8 years, maybe even more than that, if we go back to Obama's Department of Justice, the Department of Justice has been weaponized against not just individuals, but whole swaths of people. I mean, I remember Obama's attorney general going after conservative Christians and getting the IRS involved and all kinds of stuff.
Meanwhile, at the same time, giving passes and finding loopholes for people that are on their side,
right?
Like Hunter Biden.
Like Hunter Biden, yeah. And what I find to be the most interesting about that whole story, very similar to the Russiagate stuff when Clinton was running for president, is that all the stuff that Trump was saying and that the right was saying ultimately became true, or ultimately was true. And it just took a little time to find out. So the left was, oh no, that's not the case. That's not the case, with Biden's laptop. Oh no, that's not the case. That's not the case. And here it is, how many years after? And oh, wow, look at that laptop. Look at everything that's on that laptop. So, I mean, it was all true anyway. But you never actually hear the press come back and say, oh yeah, they were right. They were right.
Oh, never.
That never happens. So the Department of Justice has been used to go after people. We were talking last week about some of the other nominees, including Tulsi Gabbard, and they went after her pretty hardcore because she went over to Russia and she visited Syria and went to see Bashar Assad.
Yep. So then she was on the TSA watch list. So she, lo and behold, this woman who serves in the military is the congresswoman, goes through the airport and is stopped by TSA. Everything searched every time she was flying. I don't know if it stopped yet, and she found out that she was on the watch list, and then of course spoke out against it. And I don't know if you saw just like 2 days ago CNN, as if they had this new breaking story. Yeah. Tulsi Gabbard was once on the TSA no-fly list, as if it's like some damning fact. It's We all know. Thank you.
Like nobody knew about this. So, yes. and then obviously we saw a lot of stuff happening with, kind of trickling down from that. If the DOJ is doing this, then other groups, other attorney generals can do this. We saw that happen with Trump's case in New York City, when you have this attorney general, or district attorney rather, going after a real estate developer, and basically he's only doing what every other real estate developer does in New York, and nobody's ever been charged with this. So it's like the corruption, if it starts at the head, it'll trickle down to other areas. Of course, they're on the same side. I mean, the DA in New York City is a Democrat as well. But so the question is, like, what does Bondi have to do really to clean this situation up? What does she just have to go in and fire all these people? And
there's some of that, yeah.
And are there procedures maybe that need to be? What is the check and balance for the DOJ? I mean, the DOJ is under the president. So where's the check and balance for that?
I obviously don't know how the DOJ works and all of its intricacies, but I do know we need equal application of the law. I mean, if Donald Trump Jr. was doing the things that Hunter was doing, I would want him held to the full extent of the law, but you don't want uneven justice, which is what's going on. So Bondi has to go in there and, like you said, there is some house cleaning that has to be done in personnel. If somebody's not honest and they're in there weaponizing the Department of Justice, those people need to go. It has to be only people in there who believe in the rule of law. And of course, yeah, you're right. Trump is kind of over. That's part of the executive branch, right? So
right.
He has control over that ultimately, and that's why he has the right to put in whoever he wants in there. It's okay if they don't like it. We just can't have this anymore.
We definitely need to have. There needs to be some sense of that you're going to get treated the same regardless who you are.
Yes.
And it shouldn't be as political as it's become anyway. I mean, I don't think that's the intention with the Department of Justice, is to just go after and what it's amounted to is going after your political enemies. Mm-hmm. I was actually looking up some scripture passages that have to do with justice, and some of the passages that I found, like, for example, Deuteronomy 27:19, cursed be anyone who perverts the justice due to the sojourner, the fatherless, and the widow, and all the people shall say amen. And so that's giving you three different categories of
perverted justice. I like that.
Yeah, don't pervert justice. Mm-hmm. In other words, treat the foreigner who resides among you legally the same as you treat somebody who has no father and somebody who has no or somebody who's a widow, mm-hmm. Has no husband. So regardless of station in life, you should be treating people equally.
Because perverted justice, uneven scales, as the Bible says, when about fair scales, if you don't do that, it's not justice at all. It's injustice.
Right.
So this perverted justice, this unjust scales they're doing, is not justice. It's the opposite of it.
And Leviticus 19:15, you shall do no injustice in court. You shall not be partial to the poor.
Unless it's Trump, though. Right?
Unless it's Trump.
Because he deserves it.
You shall not be partial to the poor or defer to the great, but in righteousness shall you judge your neighbor. And I like that specifically because, we even see some, really, if you look at a lot of the legislation that's passed, it's preferencing one group over another.
Yeah.
Maybe you can do that, but according to Scripture, you can't do that in court.
Which is because that's the whole equity thing. Equity is nonsense. That's equal results. We want equal treatment,
right? And
so when you're, part of this is a little bit off the subject, but when you're appointing people or putting people in office because they're the best gay black woman you can find. Like you know what I mean? Like, you want the best,
not the best person I can find.
I don't care what your sex is or what color you are,
right?
Or I just want you should get the best person for the job. And if you look at Jean, how do you say her name? Jean-Pierre,
the 25-year-old.
She's a disaster.
50-year-old.
She's a disaster.
But we did say that her skin is great and she looks really young.
She has aged really well.
Yes.
Dumber than a box of rocks.
We gave her credit for genetics, which really I guess we should be giving credit to her mom and her dad.
Way to go, Mr. and Mrs. Jean-Pierre.
Yeah, right. But so I think
we know she's not going to be passing that genetics on.
Probably not. Right. I think it's actually a difference between equality and equity.
Yeah.
Equity is good. Equitable just means that
I think equality is good.
Well, I think equality, though, that's where you run into the problem. See, equity is that everybody is treated equitably, not that everything turns out equal.
No, I think it's the opposite.
No, I don't know. I think we might have to look that up.
I'm right. He agrees.
Is he?
Equity is the equal outcome.
Oh, is it? I thought equality was equal outcome, mm-hmm. and equity is what you want because Scripture says that God treats people equitable.
Yeah, well, that word equity, like where it says, is even straight line or even balances. That's what that word means in Hebrew. It's not the same thing as English when we
Well,
mean
right.
Like make sure everybody.
Yeah.
It's an even balance means everybody's treated. It actually means equality.
Right. So that's what
we
I'm.
want
That's what I think.
equality.
That's what I'm getting at is that equity is that what you just said.
Equity is
Equality
outcome.
is different. I think if you look at it the way it's used, equality is we're expecting things to be equal. Equal means our standing in the beginning and our outcome at the end. I think that's the way it's used, whether or not that's the correct definition. But what you just defined as equity, that's what I'm saying. That's why
the biblical
that's
meaning,
why
but
equity
that's
is
not what people mean in our world, where they say
okay. So now
diversity, diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Right.
They mean equal outcomes. You treat people. They are for treating blacks, favoring blacks over whites,
right?
So that we get to the same outcome. That's sacrificing.
So
equality.
they're misusing
that's sacrificing
the word
equality to create equity.
They're misusing the word equity, is what it boils down to. They're using it in an incorrect way, because the way you defined it is the English definition of equity.
That's not what they mean.
Yeah.
They mean an equality is treating everybody the same, but they said that's not good enough. You need to do equity.
DJ's going to look it up for us and make sure we're saying the right thing either way. But in any case, we should be looking for the best person, not. But you know, when it goes back to the courts, we're specifically not using court systems against people based on race or sex or station in life or political view, which is what has kind of been the problem that we've been seeing the last 4 to 6 years. Is the courts have been used against people. The Department of Justice has been used against people, depending on what their political views are or what kind of politician they are, right? Particularly with Trump.
And I want justice to be equal to whether you're Muslim, Christian,
right? Absolutely.
Black, white, gay, straight.
Absolutely.
Yeah. You treat everybody exactly the same in that.
By the way, going back to a previous episode, is the Christian thing to do. You won't find that in an Islamic country because religious minorities are given a different status. So they have different treatment under the law. They have different treatment in the court system. In fact, we talk, Iran is in the news a lot, right? And if you look at the Christian community in Iran,
you're second.
And not only that, but they have their own court system to judge matters that are like within their community, right?
Sharia law.
But no. The Jews and the Christians have their own.
Okay.
So they have their own separate court system that the Iranian courts don't get involved in. And then anything above that has to do with Sharia law, that is handled by the Iranian court. So they're treated differently, so much so that they're like, hey, here's your own court to deal with your own trivial matters. But as soon as you violate something, that matters to us, you have a secondary status, and we're going to take care of that in our courts.
What'd you come up with?
Okay, so I've got a definition.
Okay.
There's an English definition, like the actual word definition,
right.
And then there's the definition of the concept.
Okay.
So the English definition of equity is the quality of being fair and impartial.
Okay.
And the English definition of equality is a state of being equal, especially in status, rights, and opportunities. However, the conceptual difference is equality is treating everyone the same, regardless of the differences or specific needs. Equity is recognizing that people have different circumstances and providing resources and opportunities to reach an equal outcome.
So that's how. Okay,
Yeah,
I see what you're saying.
I'm not for just because of like somebody who's poor taking money from rich people and giving it to poor people so that everyone, because that's called communism, socialism.
Right. Yeah, sure.
That's and it doesn't work. It just simply doesn't work. And,
Well, it doesn't work anyway. Just look at the public school system in the poorest neighborhoods in America.
Yeah. And most of these inequalities that they're saying are there's no evidence for them. They're just like this esoteric, like subjective, like thing.
Right.
Like this system that's rigged against black people. What do we have in our laws? What do we have in our... Actually, colleges favor African Americans. They fight. They favor minorities.
Sure.
Jobs now favor minorities.
Sure.
So yeah.
So that is a misuse of the word equity is what it boils down to. That's how it's used, but it's a misuse. So yeah, I agree with you 100%. It's not the way I would use the word equity. And I guess I wasn't even thinking of the DEI definition, because that's a relatively new acronym that people.
Yeah, because if you say I agree with equity, then that's what the whole thing is.
So I agree with treating people equitably, which is fairness, and fairness doesn't necessarily mean the way they're using it is the fair thing to do between you if you grew up in the projects and me if I grew up in suburbia, is that I've got to give you a leg up because you didn't have access to things that I had access to.
We should add stuff to the scale so it makes it even.
Right. Yeah.
Rather than treating everybody evenly.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. Okay. So we want the courts to use equity in its proper sense. That it should be about
a fair
treating
balance.
people fairly. Okay, going from a situation that could be described as in the toilet to
one of the greatest unknown holidays.
Yeah, one of the quite literally one of the.
Do you know what holiday is Saturday?
Not Saturday. The Friday after Thanksgiving.
Friday after Thanksgiving. I mean,
Holiday?
what holiday?
What do we call the Friday after Thanksgiving? No, it's
the Friday after Thanksgiving. What's it called? It is the world-renowned holiday, Brown Friday.
Brown Friday.
When plumbers have the busiest day of the year.
This is an actual story.
Legitimate story. Go ahead.
This is an actual story. No, go ahead. You have it.
So we have this article here from UPI. By the way, Chad found this. It's pretty cool. This UPI. We don't know anything about it. It could be like, we don't know if it's right wing, left wing, nothing. We don't know.
Yeah.
But all we know is they have a strange stories section on their website.
Right.
Bizarre stories. If you like that kind of stuff, which apparently Chad and I found out we do.
Yeah.
And,
absolutely.
One of them is most clogged U.S. cities revealed ahead of Brown Friday. So it says this is November 21st this year. This is fresh Brown Friday statistics here. This is like fresh off the press here. Plumbers in the United States are preparing for Brown Friday, the busiest day of the year for their profession. And one analysis suggested Los Angeles is likely to be the most clogged city.
No kidding.
Is anybody surprised by that?
No kidding.
Well, I tell you one thing. San Francisco will not be most clogged because people just crap on the streets there.
Yeah, right,
So
right.
It frees
yeah.
no,
that's
frees
true.
the plumbing. So that's a good thing.
So they say their calls go up 65. So this was back in 2023. Searches online for emergency plumbing surged by 65% compared to searches from 2 weeks prior to Thanksgiving and data from 2 weeks after the holiday. So Brown Friday is definitely a big business day for plumbers around America. And all it can make me think of is, if you haven't seen the Mel Brooks movie, History of the World Part 1, there's a scene where he's walking through, and they go through different epochs of history. And there's a scene where they're walking through ancient Rome, and there's all these vendors on the street selling things. And one of the guys is selling plumbing, and he's got a pipe and he's got a plunger, and he says, plumbing, get your plumbing here. You can pipe the shit right out of your house.
Pipe it out?
That's what he says. Oh. It's the funniest thing. You can pipe it right out of your house. So that's what's going on for.
So make
for
sure
Brown
that you
Friday.
give your favorite plumber a Brown Friday card.
Yeah.
This year.
Yeah, that's hilarious.
Yes,
that would be fun. We should come up. Hallmark. I'm sure Hallmark does not have Brown Friday cards.
We need a merch store.
Some.
We need a merch store and have Brown Friday
That's
cards.
a great idea. We should write some Brown Friday cards. I don't know. And any plumbers that you can give them to
My
give them a
stepson
card.
is a plumber. So
is he? Well,
yes.
There you go. So he's going to get the first card. Okay. So on to something a little more serious. We learned over the last week that an evangelical, a fairly well-known evangelical preacher and leader Tony Campolo, passed away. Campolo was basically he was a Baptist, and he was a professor at Eastern University. He was a popular conference speaker. He spoke in a lot of different evangelical conferences.
Very good speaker.
Very good speaker. Very personable. Not like an exegete. He was more of a topical kind of preacher. He started to become kind of, a couple weeks ago we talked about the religious left, and we were actually highlighting people that came from traditions that weren't typically on the left, and that's kind of what Campolo was. He was a guy who slowly progressed, to use not to use a pun, but it started in the late 80s, early 90s with what became known as the evangelical left. Now, there had always been a religious left, and the evangelicals just didn't have part in it. They were mostly the mainline denominations that had their academics, their theologians, some of their preachers were part of what we would have called the religious left. But then in the late 80s and early to mid 90s, we had the rise of people like Brian McLaren, who was part of the emerging church movement. He wrote a book called A Generous Orthodoxy. You mentioned Rob Bell, who at some point decided to teach, became a universalist, I think, essentially.
Yeah.
And then Ron Sider, who was the founder and director of Evangelicals for Social Action, and Jim Wallace, we talked about his organization a couple weeks ago, Sojourners, and Tony Campolo. But Campolo, this religious left of evangelicals was mostly about social justice issues, right? It wasn't so much about, at least initially, it wasn't about social issues that cross over into like the political sphere, like gay marriage or LGBT stuff or whatever. It was really about helping the poor, and then there was sort of a climate aspect to it. Now, for me personally, I was raised in a pretty, I've mentioned before, pretty fundamentalist evangelical environment, Wesleyan holiness, very hardcore. And so Campolo, when I first came across Campolo, he was kind of an outlet for me, as I'm trying to hold on to my evangelical faith, but I'm starting to be concerned about the needs of my neighbor, and I just don't feel my church is very compassionate, kind of thing. And so Campolo kind of kept me in. And then even after I left the church, and when I started to come back to the church, I was coming back on my own terms, and I was sort of left of center politically at that point. So I wanted my church to be in line with my politics instead of the other way around. And at that point, Campolo had gotten even more left of center as far as orthodoxy.
Following his wife, by the way. His wife was ahead of him pretty far.
His wife was way ahead of him. And I think, and we'll talk about this too, his son Bart, who went into ministry with, under him, after him, and Bart was most notably known for youth ministry originally. I don't think he ever actually pastored a church, but he was also like a youth ministry conference speaker. And you should Google him, because he's an atheist now, and he's actually a humanist chaplain at, I think, like the University of Cincinnati or something like that. And yes, humanists have chaplains, which is kind of like a weird. It's like a weird oxymoron. Well, I guess they look at chaplaincy like social work. I don't know, But
he's a social worker. Okay.
But he's basically a social worker, right? Yeah, and he found a way of using all his pastoral training post belief, and his story is really interesting, because basically he was saying that he was just essentially getting more and more into the social justice stuff, which his father was part of, but his father remained Christian. His father, all the way up until, after Bart became an atheist, they even did a documentary together where they go back and forth about why faith still matters to Tony and why it doesn't matter to Bart. And at some point Bart had this a really bad bicycle accident where he was going, I guess, 30, 40 miles an hour on a bike.
On a bicycle?
On a bicycle. And he had this terrible accident where he should have died. And he was in a coma for, however long. When he came out of the coma, he looked at his wife, he claims, and says his first words, I don't think I believe in God. Nothing happened. I was just, asleep. So I don't know. I'm sure it's a little more, in depth than that. But as far as where Tony began and where Tony ended up, I think it's just an example of
Long story short, he eventually started to become very open about his progressive ideals and okay with homosexual marriage. And but it was like, you're right, it was like a slow leak. It was like, but then of course there's that moment where you say it, but there was like clues, and I see, honestly, I see the same clues right now in Andy Stanley.
Oh yeah,
I see those I was seeing those same clues in what's the guy who used to be in New York City who just passed not that long ago. Anyways, gosh,
Wilkinson?
No.
Wilkerson,
the Presbyterian guy from Gospel Coalition.
Tim Keller.
I was starting to see some of the signs in him, and so yeah, that's kind of like the way it goes.
Yeah, I think it does. And the thing with, at least with Campolo, is it was all the people around him were, going into that, and then just ultimately he got.
I was sad. I was upset because I did like him, and I've never been a Baptist in theology. I've always been, but I did appreciate him back in the day. Like and not even. I don't remember hearing his like social justice stuff. I just remember him teaching on the Bible, and I thought he was like kind of practical, and I enjoyed him. And then when I heard I knew his wife went liberal, and then I was really happy to hear that I heard he wasn't.
Yeah, right.
So I was sad to hear he finally, gave into the dark side.
Yeah, and I think, look, I don't judge anybody's heart in terms of where they stand with God. It's not my job to determine that.
I judge your heart.
Yeah, well, if you judge it, then it's sparkly clean.
Didn't Luther say like a snow-covered crap pile?
Yeah, that's exactly what he said. Right.
So that's what you are.
That's why the heart in the Luther rose is black.
So you're a snow-covered.
I'm a snow-covered pile. My heart is a snow-covered. I don't know. If he would have met Wesley, he would have had a lot of bad things to say. I'm a joke. But I think the issue is that when Jeremiah sums it up. Jeremiah 6:16. Thus says the Lord, stand by the roads and look and ask for the ancient paths where the good way is, and walk in it and find rest for your souls. So if you stick to the ancient path, the word of God, and the way things have been laid out, you're going to find rest for your soul. But then the people that the prophet is talking to, this is what they say: we will not walk in it. There's a refusal to walk in that, and we've seen that. We're talking about an individual, but we've talked about at length. We talked about the United Methodist Church. We talked a little bit about the Evangelical Lutheran Church, and the other once historic Orthodox Christian denominations that have all veered from that ancient path and walked off that road because the people, mostly the people in leadership, said, yeah, we're just not going to walk in that. We don't think that word is valid for our day and age.
That's exactly right. It's right there.
Yeah. One of the worst actually, what was Campolo was known for, the one phrase I remember him always saying that he's most remembered for is it's Friday now, but Sunday's coming. He's the one who coined that. He coined that. He used it in a lot of his talks. So whenever you see like a meme that says that, that's actually rooted in something he said at a conference. It's Friday now, but it's Sunday coming. So I like to remember it wasn't like it was. It wasn't like
who said it. Just say it was Augustine.
It was Augustine. Yeah, right. Everybody thinks Augustine said everything. It's like with all these guys, I had a professor once who said there is no such thing as history, only historiography.
Just the other day, I saw a guy credit Wesley on Facebook on one of my Methodist pages with the on the essentials unity, on the non-essentials charity, and all things. What is it? And the essentials unity and the non-essentials.
In the non-essentials charity,
liberty, and all things charity.
Yeah, that's it.
And he's like, as Wesley said. I was like, Wesley did not say that. No. He maybe said it. Maybe
later. Yeah, maybe later. But that was not a Wesleyan.
But it's true. Methodists like to credit Wesley with everything good. Lutherans sometimes credit Luther with everything good. Presbyterians credit.
I think
Calvin.
I think that's the case. I think there's a lot
stuff.
There's a lot of Presbyterians. No, we're not actually. There's Presbyterians aren't even Calvinist anymore. They don't even know who Calvin was. Most Presbyterians are Zwinglians. They just don't realize it. But
oh man, them fighting words.
Yeah. A lot of times Luther gets quotes that like we don't know who said them. They're just. Yeah, it sounds like Luther. So, like, no. So some of those
Luther
quotes,
once said, "Let's drink."
Yeah, well, that he probably said, but there's one that everybody likes to say and likes to credit to him, which is that God doesn't need your good works, your neighbor does. but there's no evidence that Luther said that. It's a very Lutheran thing to say, and Luther could have maybe said it, but it's not something that we know that he said. But that's like I said, my church history professor said there's no such thing as history. There's only historiography. And what he's getting at obviously is not an absolute. It's that the history that you get is the stories that you're told, and the people who write the stories, you're trusting their testimony.
Unless it's a first-hand account, then it's...
Well, even first-hand accounts, it's still historiography. There's no way around
I mean, like if somebody wrote something.
an autobiography.
Yeah.
But then you got to hope that they didn't embellish their life, you know. Like I know when you write your autobiography, you're going to be the greatest thing next to sliced bread, you know, or next to Welch's grape juice. Isn't that what you Methodists like for communion? Welch's grape juice?
Yeah, that's what they... I'm not. I'm more of a...
You're more of a wine
for
guy.
wine, yeah.
There you go. Good man. All right. So if you have a business, if you have a, you know, even a podcast, you know, we're willing to advertise competition. If you have a church, if you're a pastor of a church, or you run a parachurch ministry.
Even a Presbyterian.
Even a Presbyterian.
I'm kidding, Presbyterians. We love you. We need someone. He's a Lutheran. I'm a Methodist. We need somebody to poke fun at.
That's right.
So you're not here, so we're making fun of you.
Yeah. But if you would like to, after that spiel, if you would like to sponsor an episode, you can send us $20.
It's predestined to happen.
It's predestined to happen. You can send $20 you got to email us at jesusagendapodcast@gmail.com, and we'll let you know how to get the $20 to us. And then send us your copy, what you want us to say, or if you want to put a video in or audio or something like that, we can get it on our next show. So the last thing we're going to talk about, speaking about all this technology, one of these days we'll have to pan the camera.
Yeah,
around
you should see it. You should see what we're
everybody
trying to
can
buy.
see everything.
I
that
see
our
one,
producer
two.
has.
I see 4 3D printers.
Yeah, just don't
Is
give
there
us
4 in here
don't
or
give
5?
Don't give us address.
5 3D printers.
Don't give his address away. Whatever you do.
This place would be a good hit.
Yeah.
Let's put it that way.
So we're going to talk about phone core, and it's not what it sounds like.
Yeah.
Phone core.
It's actually pretty cool.
It actually is pretty cool that this person came up with this business, but so it's basically a young woman developed this line of accessories for your phone that essentially make the phone a fashion accessory. And she's kind of really just hitting on something that's already true. People care as much about their phones, maybe even more than they do about their, you know, earrings or the scarf they're wearing.
Everybody has one. If you watch a video of like the slums in the Philippines or the slums in Africa, they're running around with their shacks. And but they all have phones.
Yeah.
Everybody has a phone.
I just watched a video this morning of somewhere in Africa. These guys got his phone up, taking a video of all these kids like out in the dirt, and there's huts behind them, singing some chorus, some praise song. I'm like, what? They've got connection. I mean, they're in the middle of nowhere, and they've got connection. But so she kind of like hit on this thing about how much phones have become a part of our lives. You know, like you might leave your wallet at home and just keep driving, but if you leave your phone at home, you'll turn around and get it. And
obviously, it might be an emergency.
How
could you ever live without a phone?
But when I think about, I mean, I'm sure you're in the same position. Like my church, for example, uses a data system that has all our members in it, has all the addresses, all the phone numbers, and I have an app for it on my phone. So if I'm out and I get a call and I have to go see somebody, or if I'm scheduling visits and I need to go one place to the next and I'm not sure how to get there, I just pull it up in the app, hit the thing, and the GPS starts. So that and your calendar and everything else. And now, I mean, if you have, I don't know, I'm sure
social media,
sure they have it for Androids, but I know with Apple we have a wallet. So you can put cards in and
social media for your church. I mean,
social media for your church.
It's really hard not to have a phone in this day and age.
Right,
Any job, they almost expect you to have one. Yeah.
So that's kind of like the, what she's tapping into, and she's realizing, okay, well, everybody's got them. So let's figure out for women how to make them, more a part of your wardrobe, I guess, basically. So it's kind of becoming an accessory or fashion accessory, but. So really what is she doing though? Then she's kind of crossing over from fashion to utility to technology. All these kind of things are merging into her product. But what it made me think, there's obviously lots of positive things to where we have gotten technologically.
Yeah.
but there's also negative things. And usually we hear about those negative things in terms of kids. I know we limit my son is 14. He's not allowed to use social media, so we have a lock on his phone for that. He's allowed to use his phone. He uses it mostly for playing, he's a boy, so he's playing video games. Or he's connecting with somebody on Facebook Messenger, like one of his friends or something. But even that's limited to the hours he's allowed to use it, a certain amount of hours a day, and it's like set into the phone.
Is he allowed to read Luther's works?
He has the catechism right on his phone.
So he is allowed to read that?
Oh, absolutely.
Anytime he wants, or just during phone time?
Anytime he wants.
Okay.
Yeah, no, actually how it works is if he wants to use an app outside of the time, he has to ask. It comes up as a permission thing. The other day,
if you request to use Luther's catechism, you're gonna
approve all day. But the other day, I saw him. He requested. He wanted to read one of these sermons from this guy Wesley. And I was like, no, don't approve. No. no, but so they're obviously...
Wesley Snipes, you meant, yeah.
Wesley Snipes, absolutely. He's a terrible preacher. He makes a good drug dealer, though, in the movies.
He makes a good vampire killer.
Very good vampire. Yeah, Blade Runner. Great.
Well, he was actually a vampire, a daywalker.
Half and half.
A daywalker.
Right, because he was half and half, right?
Not half and half.
Isn't that how it goes?
No, his mom was pregnant with him.
And she got
bit right when he was, and she was dying, and he was born. So he's full, but he's a daywalker because his development got arrested by him being born before her stuff got fully.
And next week on the Jesus Agenda,
that's a very good documentary for all you out there. It's called Blade.
Next week on the Jesus Agenda, we'll talk about zombies. Is the headshot the best way to kill them? But we talk about kids when it comes to like over reliance on phones, but really adults are just as bad, probably worse.
Stake in the heart, by the way.
Stake in the heart for zombies?
Oh, zombies.
No,
yes,
for vampires. Yes. Yeah, for zombies it's a headshot. But
Clearly
we were going to talk about if there was alternatives there. We should do a whole show on cryptography, right?
Cryptozoology. I like those topics.
That's cryptozoology. My son said, maybe I'll go to college to be a cryptozoologist. I go, I don't think there's a degree in that yet.
There isn't all that jobs.
So I mean, we over rely on them too, and where's the line between reliance and addiction anyway? What is it that's how do you define that? Where do you come up with? Is it just that, if you're spending your days doom scrolling, then you've gone into addiction, or are there other signs of it?
Yeah, and we all know they admit they have scientists that find ways to make these things if you get a chance, watch it just came on Netflix. It's about
I saw that,
the consumerism and stuff. It's really good.
Oh no,
about the waste and it just came out really good. I don't agree with everything they said, but they talked about how Amazon lady there was talking about how every single color and everything on the app is designed to make you impulse buy.
Yeah,
and that was the whole thing was born on. But that's just one example. But all those things are designed, and whenever you're sitting there and you put here's how for me how I know I need a break from it. If I have my phone next to me and I find myself mindlessly grab it and pick it up and start scrolling and then put it down and then pick it up and keep
right.
It's almost like you have that impulse to reach for it and keep grabbing for it. That's your brain asking for that dopamine that it's gotten addicted to, and that after a while you'll notice you start to feel kind of anxious, and that is that. DJ knows a lot more about this science, the human body, but dopamine production and processing eventually starts to cause, it can almost have you an anxiety feel. I don't know if the anxiety is from not because you need more of it. I don't know. Is it from that, DJ? You keep looking at the phone over and over, and you start feeling anxious about it, almost.
Yeah, it's kind of similar to like a withdrawal.
It's like smoking.
Yeah,
it's like smoking.
And so, there's been times where many times I've gotten to that, and I say, okay, I need to do some time where I keep my phone across the room at night, and just not mess with it.
I try one of the tricks that I try to use is not to use my phone in the morning for like 20 minutes, 25 minutes. Just don't look at it at all. And
I look at it like as soon as I wake up.
well, they say it's kind of, actually, they also say that the guy that was kind of pushing that was also pushing not drinking coffee as soon as you wake up, like drinking a glass of water.
I also drink coffee as soon as I wake up.
See, that one I've had a hard time with, but the phone I just keep to the side while I do, take the dog out, get the coffee, all that kind of stuff. Right?
A little trick to
I don't
fall
know if
asleep.
it helps.
You know how
but-
they say phones keep you up if you do it before you go to sleep?
Yeah.
Actually, little known fact, if you read Luther's catechism on your phone, you will fall asleep very quickly, surprisingly quickly. So, little tip for our listeners.
Yeah. You will fall asleep. You will fall asleep well because you will be at peace knowing that you rest in the hands of God because you learned from somebody who knows. I was going to suggest also this other documentary that they did on Facebook called Social Dilemma. Did you ever see that?
Very good. Yeah.
That was excellent.
Very
And
powerful.
that's all by the
Netflix,
guys.
right?
Yeah, that was on Netflix.
Netflix has some really good.
Well,
document-
they do. You gotta be careful.
You have to search the facts out because they give
Because Netflix is very leftist, the Social Dilemma was really excellent. It came very highly recommended across the board because these were the actual people who developed the algorithms for all these various social media platforms.
Yeah, very good.
And they're saying, as soon as I realized what I was doing, I kind of backed out of it because I see what they're doing and how they're controlling people and how they're getting people to come back or keeping them in this echo chamber where they're not seeing other things. Like, for example, we've shared this podcast, I don't know how many times, and I know, look, I'm not bragging about myself, but I follow Steve's page, Steve follows my page, and we both get a decent amount of likes on things. We don't get any feedback when we share this on our feed. That says to me that it's not, people aren't seeing it. And that's kind of crazy. All because we have politics in the title.
I get comments like, you're so handsome.
But your wife doesn't
so
count.
cute.
Dude. Your wife doesn't count. Your wife doesn't count. DJ doesn't count either, technically. I'm just saying.
I have to admit it was my wife, my mom, and my nieces.
Yeah.
But, I mean,
but either way.
those comments did happen.
That works. Just remember, when you're out and about, you're not that much younger than me, so you're the old guy in the room, buddy. That's how that works.
Well, you're the oldest.
I am the oldest.
DJ is the young pop.
So you should, honestly, that's how it should go. It should go from wisdom to beauty over here.
Yeah, age before beauty.
All right. Well, a little bit shorter of an episode, but I think the stuff that we talked about was important. I think it is important, especially as we watch this administration shape up. It's important to see, what are things going to be like going forward. And we really do need to just go in and clean house. We need, and not just in the DOJ, but in a lot of these departments. One of the best pieces of news I saw the other day, and it was Facebook, but it was from Lila Rose, who's one of the big pro-life voices in the country.
Oh, yeah.
She reposted something that either Elon tweeted or Vivek tweeted, that Doge is going to go after the $300 million funding for Planned Parenthood.
Oh, thank God.
So that would be really nice.
There's no good reason for us to be
No, there
funding
really
them
isn't
anyways.
any good reason.
Yeah.
Now, I want to just, as long as we're talking, now I'm just I was about to end the show, but there was another thing that I saw, and I don't know if you saw this, but that apparently vasectomies have gone up 1,200%.
Well, they had a bus outside of the Democratic Convention.
Yeah, I knew that. Abortions and vasectomies. But this is like, since the election, Planned Parenthood is reporting a 1,200% increase in vasectomies.
So it's all liberals. So good, there'd be less.
Well,
of
it's
them in
all
that
liberals,
generation.
but it's like, honestly, guys, you do know that there's a much cheaper, less invasive way of not getting somebody pregnant, right? And there's even a free way of not getting somebody pregnant. The free way, it might not be as fun, but you don't have to worry about anything. It's just don't have sex with anybody you're not married to. But if you're going to do that anyway, they have these really cheap things they've been using for like 100 years. I did the research on that. Oh, yeah. Even Siri says something went wrong.
See? Something's wrong.
They've been using those for like 100 years. They've been around forever. So you really don't need to get a vasectomy. I mean, it doesn't bother me if it's all liberals getting vasectomies. But why put yourself through it? Just stop at the gas station on the way home. What's the problem? Don't buy the sushi, but you can get this stuff and it'll help.
Yeah, I'm gonna be cut open as little as possible.
Yeah. I've never had a
Especially
sushi.
down under.
They wanted to operate on my brain, but I wouldn't let them do it. So, well, anyway, that's about the episode. So we're gonna end with that. Next week,
It's all downhill from here.
next week we'll find some other stuff to talk about. Listen, if you enjoy the episode, please like and subscribe to our YouTube channel and like and follow our Facebook page. You'll get all of the videos, all of the audio. You can find the audio on any streaming platform that you listen to podcasts on. And please share this with your friends and family. And like we said, Facebook is suppressing it because we have politics, most likely is why they do it in our title. So you got to send it through text messages or Facebook Messenger or your email. It's been a great conversation, and we hope to see you back here again next week. Have a good week.